Last Shot by Daniel Jose Older comes out today. It's a novel starring Han and Lando as they work together to stop the activation of a mysterious device known as the Phalanx Redux Transmitter, or face some serious galactic consequences. I'm here to tell you my thoughts and feelings about the book, and I'm going to keep it all spoiler-free. From the very first page, you can tell that Daniel Jose Older knows how to write for Han and Lando. The book is immediately full of charm and confidence, and I could really hear both characters delivering their lines. It's more crass and raunchy than most of the more recent Star Wars books. It's down and dirty, and it just feels like Han. Most of the book takes place 3 years after Return of the Jedi during peacetime, following both men as we are more used to seeing them. We see Han struggling to be a husband and a father, and reading about Ben as a toddler is already kind of heartbreaking. But we also get a glimpse into Han and Lando's lives before the events of the original trilogy. We follow Lando when he and L337 owned the Millennium Falcon 15 years prior, or 8 years before A New Hope, and then we follow Han and Chewie 5 years later after they'd acquired the Falcon. Sana Starros from the Star Wars comics also plays a very big part in their story, and it was a level of connectivity that I really enjoyed. By the way, we've been estimating that Solo, a Star Wars story, will take place about 10 years before A New Hope, but from the book it sounds like that'll be bumped up by at least 2 years. But in those earlier stories, we get to see Han and Lando as we are not quite used to seeing them. They're written as very believable younger versions of themselves. Lando is especially fun, even more into his style and clothes. If you want to get a taste of what the two of them will be like in the upcoming movie, I have a feeling this book is going to turn out to be a very accurate representation. I'd also say that this book could be kind of a warning to let us know that they will not be carbon copies of what we're used to in the original trilogy. They're going to have to grow into that, and one of the major themes of this book is personal growth. The main conflict of the book is set up because of the sins of their respective youths, so to speak. Some of their negative qualities come back to haunt them after they've matured and grown up. They both came into contact with the Phalanx device when they were younger, and then they have to finish what they started a decade or more later. The Phalanx itself was a refreshing threat. I won't say what it is or what it does here, but it's not a super weapon, and I was relieved about that, although it does still have some pretty terrifying galactic consequences. I will say that the main villain of the story, he's a gangster named Fyzen Gore. I didn't quite understand his motivations other than just pure insanity or maybe PTSD. We do get some backstory about him scattered throughout the book, and by the end of it, I just didn't quite know where he was coming from. On the other hand, I liked him just because he was a different villain. I've been saying for a while now that I don't want the Empire to be the main threat in Solo, a Star Wars story. I would prefer it be that criminal element, probably the Cloud Rider gang that we've been seeing in the trailers, just because I want something different in the movie, and the book certainly delivered on that. Han and Lando get help from a handful of other characters, both new and old. Chewbacca is, of course, back, because you almost need him in any story that revolves around Han, but I'm glad that the central relationship of the book was more about Han and Lando. They've had some major ups and downs throughout their history, and it was cool to see them work through some of that. For example, there's a great moment where they discuss what happened on Cloud City in The Empire Strikes Back. Other members of the crew include a young hotshot pilot, an Ugnaught mechanic, a Twi'lek love interest for Lando, and an expert Ewok slicer. I will admit that I have some thoughts about the Ewok slicer, because we're talking about a species that was fighting with sticks and stones at the Battle of Endor, and now only 3 years later there's this prodigy that is not only familiar with technology, but an expert at it. And in my head I was like, this is a little bit far-fetched. And it is. But then I just reminded myself that we're talking about Star Wars, and this is a universe with planet-destroying superweapon space stations and a magical energy field and lightsabers, and it's not the least believable thing that's ever happened. And what's more important is that the character is fun. She's appropriately used, she's funny and amusing to read on the page, and if something makes me smile that much, I have a hard time nitpicking it too hard. And if I had to choose, that's probably the one word I would use to describe Last Shot. Fun. But I'll use some other words as well. It's enthusiastic, energetic, fast-paced, and funny. It's pretty much exactly what I hope we get from Solo next month. Just a roller coaster of a story that you don't want to stop enjoying. I mentioned this in my last Q&A, but I just finished reading 7 Legends stories about Han and Lando, and by the end of it, I was honestly kinda sick of reading about those two. But then, the day after I finished book 7, LASTSHOT came in the mail, and I found myself immediately excited to crack it open, and then I couldn't put it down. So that's my review, but I thought it would be fun to start a new tradition as Star Wars books continue to come out, and I want to give away a physical copy. So if you follow the link in the description, that'll take you to the contest. There are multiple ways to enter. You can do one of them or all of them, whatever you're comfortable doing, and then on Saturday during the Q&A, I will announce the winner. Also, if you want to listen to the audiobook for LASTSHOT right now for free, you can do that by clicking on the other link in the description or by going to www.audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. The audiobook is out right now, and all of the Star Wars audiobooks have really great production value. There's sound effects and music. It's basically like listening to a movie. So if you sign up for a free trial on Audible, you'll immediately get a credit for 1 free audiobook, and you can use that on LASTSHOT, or any number of other Star Wars books, or just get any book you want. The point is, you get a free book, and you'll be supporting the channel when you do. But that's it for today. As you guys finish reading LASTSHOT, I would love it if you came back here and told me your thoughts in the comments. And keep an eye out for tomorrow's video, which is going to feature all of the facts and Easter eggs and pieces of trivia that I picked out like I do with all the new Star Wars books. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.